Welcome one and all to the online learning platform at Department of Civil Engineering, BMS Institute of Technology and Management. I am Dr. Rajesh Gopinath and you are with me on the course Water Supply and Treatment Engineering, popularly also termed as Public Health Engineering or Environmental Engineering. Last session we had discussed about screens, and for today's session we are going to speak about aeration. Let's move on to slide 5. In today's presentation, I shall first introduce you to the concept of aeration. Moving on, I'll explain to you the various types. Further, we shall try to understand what are its advantages and disadvantages before we summarize it, and I list the references. Slide 6. So what is basically aeration? It's a simple process or logic wherein air is brought in contact with water or water is brought in contact with air. Thereby, you facilitate a air-water interface which allows exchange of gases. Okay, now how much or the rate at which the exchange of gases will take place would depend on several factors, several criteria, such as the area available for exchange, okay, also the rate of absorption and desorption with respect to specific gases, with respect to their partial pressures. It also depends on when an equilibrium is reached. It also would depend on temperature. Okay, now this process, aeration, is not new to nature. Rivers and streams have been inculcating or inducing or incepting the concept of aeration in order to self-purify itself. Self-purification of streams and rivers is basically introduced or enhanced only because of aeration. As the river water or stream water moves and runs along, okay, due to the jumps, due to the sharp turns, there is a lot of opportunity wherein the air and water gets mixed, as a result of which oxygen enters and other gases are removed. So how does aeration help in the concept of water supply scheme? Very simple. If the water or the potential drinking source of water contains any contaminants such as metals or gases, okay, aeration will assist in removal of those gases. Okay, for instance, if in case the drinking water source has hydrogen sulfide or carbon dioxide, so when aeration takes place, there is a simple exchange wherein oxygen enters the water and these impurities, these gases like H2S, CO2, they are removed. So since those gases have been removed, the water gets cleaner. In the same manner, let us say your drinking water has impurities in the form of heavy metals or any organic contaminants. So how will aeration help here? When aeration takes place, this oxygen, when it enters the water as dissolved oxygen, this dissolved oxygen will react with those chemicals and transform them into another component which does not induce color, taste, odor or any form of undesired quality. Okay, apart from this, apart from the simple concept of exchange of gases, for instance in hydrogen sulfide or carbon dioxide, or transformation of chemicals, that is for example organic chemicals, okay, or oxidation, for instance the iron and manganese, sweeping and scrubbing action also to an extent will remove the impurities or contaminants inside the water. Let's move on to slide 7. In this slide, we can see the different types of aerators. Basically, in water supply scheme, we have 3 types: free fall aerators, spray aerators, and air diffuser basins. Sometimes the 4th type is also included, which is mechanical aerators. Basically, mechanical aerators are more prevalent in use when it comes to wastewater treatment. Now, under free fall aerators, which is also called as gravity aerators, we have the further types such as cascade, cone, inclined apron, slat tray, and gravel bed aerators. We shall be discussing this in the further slides. Let's move on to the first type under gravity aerators, that is cascade aerators. Let's go on to slide 8. Cascade, it means steps. Cascade aerators are the most simplest of all the free fall aerators. Waves, waterfalls, any kinds can behave as cascade aerators. As you see in the image, there is a series of steps. Now, this can probably be made up of concrete or metal. Basically, what happens here is the water is allowed to fall freely from a height of more than 1 to 3 meters, and when it falls from one step to the another step, it will come in close contact with air, and by doing so, the purpose is served with respect to exchange of gases or oxidation of metals or transformation of inorganic organic chemicals. What we need to understand is these cascades can either be in open air or they can be kept in a room, which however has a plenty of louvered air inlet. Cascade aerators have an efficiency of removal of carbon dioxide by up to 50 to 60%. Let's move on to slide 9. So in slide 9, you can see a type of cascade aerator which is kept in the open. The image on the left hand side is a non-functional. Okay, the image on the right hand side is a functional. So this is a type of cascade aerator wherein the material of construction is concrete. Moving on to slide 10, you can see a type of cascade aerator which is fabricated with metal. So most probably this is benevolent when it comes to indoor applications. Let's move on to slide 11. Now slide 11 is again one more type of free fall or gravity aerators. These are called as cone aerators. As you can see in the image, its appearance is much different from cascade aerators, wherein in cascade aerators the water was falling from one step to another. But here what happens is the water is pumped to the top of the cones and then it is allowed to cascade down through the aerator. This kind of aerator is mostly used, in fact primarily used to oxidize iron and manganese from the ferrous state to ferric state. Okay, and this is necessary before you indulge in filtration. As you know, iron and manganese coexist and they tend to impart stains, color, like reddish when it comes to iron and grayish when it comes to manganese. Let's move further to slide 12. Now, moving on from cascade to cone, here in this image you can see inclined aerators. There are two types, one in which there is a steady inclination without any breaks or without any obstructions. That's the image on the bottom, alright, and the image on the top basically is the same arrangement. However, it comprises of riffle plates which have been arranged in a herringbone fashion. Now basically what happens here is as the water is moving from the top to bottom, as the water is flowing down, alright, so it is again coming in contact with air. Now when compared to your image on the top and bottom, the efficiency will be more when it comes to the arrangement with riffle plates, because when you keep obstructions in the flow of water, water would jump and then fall down again. Alright, so basically there is agitation which is taking place, and when this agitation takes place there is more surface area created for interaction, or that is the air water interface, thereby the rate of aeration also improves. Let's move further to slide 13. Now slide 13 you can see slat tray aerators. This is in fact the most commonly used type of aerators, and as you can see in the image, it consists of a closed round or a squared structure which contains a series of closely stacked superimposed wood slat trays. Now when it comes to functioning, what happens is the water enters the top of the aerator, okay, and then it is evenly distributed over the topmost tray. These slats in the trays are staggered in such a manner that when the film of water rains over the edges from one tray, it would fall on to the center of the other tray below it. Okay, please look at the image very carefully. We can see that air is also supplied to the bottom of the aerator. Okay, so what happens is the water is falling from the top and the air is rising from the bottom. So in this manner, there is a contact between air and water and aeration is happening. Water is finally collected at the bottom of this system, which is actually called as a collector pan, and from here further the water moves on to a catch basin or a reservoir. Now let's look at the image on the left hand side of the same slide, that is slide 13. If you recollect, I had explained that in slat tray aerators, water enters the top of the aerator, it gets distributed over the topmost tray. Okay, these trays are staggered one below the other. When the water fills in the first tray, the water from the edges falls to the next tray below it into the center. So that is how aeration was happening. Now an alternate version of this is seen on left hand side, wherein you can see that though there are plates which have been kept one below the other at a considerable height, and these plates are perforated or slotted. So what happens is when the water falls into these multiple plates, okay, water will fill into it, and then through these pores then the water starts dripping or trickling into the plates below. So thereby the advantage here is, one, the surface area enhances because it is not a film of water which is falling down, rather it is droplets. On the left, on the with respect to slat tray aerators, it was a film of water which was falling down from one tray to another tray. Okay, but here it is droplets of water which is falling down, wherein since there is more area available, the intensity of aeration will be greater. So having understood this, let us look at some more variations of the tray aerators in slide 14. Here you can see the similar kind of setup, but in this what they have done is they have kept the plates, and upon these plates they have kept some packaging materials which could be like ceramics or stones, rubbles and so forth. So what happens here is not only aeration takes place, but also if there are other impurities, they also may get entrapped and the water eventually is going to be cleaner. But do not forget that in all these systems, okay, water enters from top to bottom and air is pumped from bottom to top. Now let's move on to slide 15. Slide 15 describes a gravel bed aerators, also sometimes called as trickling beds. Here it is very similar to the previous discussion with respect to packed material. In this case, the packed material would be coke, limestone or anthracite. Now the advantage is, they are expected to help in better carbon dioxide removal than any other methods. And the thickness of the gravel beds that we employ here is around 1 to 1.5 meters. A similar form, which is also called as trickling bed, what they do here is they would keep 3 to 4 trays filled with coke, slag or stone, and the thickness of bed in each of these trays is around 0.5 to 0.6 meters. In the system, the water is applied again from the top to a perforated distribution pipe and air is supplied from the bottom. Alright, now let's move on to slide 16. Slide 16 speaks about spray aerators. Spray aerators basically have advantage when compared to all other forms because these divide the water flow into fine streams and small droplets, and when these droplets comes into intimate contact with air in their trajectory, more efficient aeration takes place. You may simulate this or try to relate this with the showers in the washrooms. Now the experience that you have when you take a bath under a shower is much more pleasant than the normal circumstances, and that is probably because of the efficiency of the fine droplets. Okay, now what we need to understand here is, if you want to follow the system, it will definitely require a considerable head of around up to 1.5 kg per centimeter square. When compared to all the systems, this can remove carbon dioxide up to 90%. These systems are also sometimes called as fountain aerators. So the images on this slide should help you to have a better understanding of the concept of spray aerators. Now, image on left hand side shows you a fountain aerator, or also called as a spray aerator. Alright, now that is being employed for a water source which could be a standing water such as a lake. Now image on the right hand side is basically for a water supply scheme, wherein the top image shows you the water jetting out, okay, in the form of fine droplets, and the image on the bottom shows the same apparatus which is being employed, and which is as you can see, it's not in use now. So what you need to understand here is, there are fine jets coming out because of the equipment which contains nozzles which have finer openings, and these finer openings transforms the water into fine droplets. Alright, now let's move further to slide 17. Now slide 17 is also one more enhanced version of aeration. This is something which is very similar to what you would see in an aquarium. In an aquarium, the water is kept fresh by pumping air into the water. So friends, let us now understand whatever systems we had discussed until now, that is right from free fall aerators, that is cascade aerators, cone aerators, trickling beds, inclined apron aerators, slat tray aerators. All of these basically worked on the principle wherein you brought water in contact with air. Now this system, that is slide 17, diffused aerator, works the other way. In this concept, you bring air in contact with water. So what basically happens here is, you employ a perforated pipe network which is usually kept at the bottom of the aeration tank. Let's simulate the same to an aquarium, and then compressed air is blown through these pipes. So when this compressed air enters the perforated pipes, they come out as bubbles, air bubbles, and naturally the air bubbles travel and move up to the water surface. So when these air bubbles are moving up through the water surfaces, air comes in contact with water and aeration takes place. Generally, air diffuser basins have a retention period of around 15 minutes. That is why you realize that there is always a steady energy which is required to keep the water fresh, whether it's a swimming pool or an aquarium. And also you need to have an effective depth of around 3 to 5 meters. Sometimes alternatively, compressed air can also be injected into the flow of water in a pipe, or air at atmospheric pressure which may be drawn in the pipe where a constriction, such as the throat of a venturi tube. Okay, now having said all this, please understand, aeration under pressure does not remove carbon dioxide. Now let us move on to slide 18. Slide 18 divulges details of mechanical aerators. As I told you in the introduction, mechanical aerators are more employed when it comes to wastewater treatment. However, mechanical aerators can also be employed for aerating a water body. But it is to be understood that mechanical aerators basically employ moving parts such as paddles, which could either be submerged or be present at the surfaces. The advantage mechanical aerators provide is, it provides you a larger air-water interface. Now, what needs to be understood is, mechanical aerators are generally not preferred to aerate a natural water body such as a lake, because it would endanger the life of its inhabitants such as fishes. However, you can employ this when it comes to aeration tank and so forth. Mostly mechanical aerators are employed for aerating wastewater systems. You can also refer the web link which I have given to you. Alright, there is also a video of how mechanical aerators perform. Let's now move on to slide 19. Slide 19 basically speaks about the merits and demerits of aeration system. As you can see, as you are aware, as you have learnt up to now, as an outcome of aeration, any inherent odor, color, taste which was present in water can be removed by employing aeration, and that is because any chemical, any heavy metal, any organic, inorganic constituent, any gas which is actually contributing this odor, taste, color to the water gets removed either by oxidation or by substitution or by transformation. Not only these advantages, but also whenever aeration takes place, the dissolved oxygen level of the water also improves, which is required for the aquatic organisms. Moving on, when it comes to disadvantages, we should understand that if a contaminated water is very high in volatile organic carbons, despite removal, despite aeration, there are chances of off-gassing, okay, and hence this still must be subjected to treatment. Now, having said all this, we need to understand that aeration is not effective when it comes to cold regimes, all right, because during when the temperature basically drops drastically in the air stripping process, carbon dioxide cannot be efficiently removed. Also, excess of aeration can result in the water getting saturated with dissolved oxygen, which actually can make the water corrosive. And finally, we need to understand that if in case your water has very less carbon dioxide or very less of impurities, then aeration could be a time consuming and energy consuming process. Therefore, aeration must be applied subjectively. Let's move on to slide 20 and let's look at the summary. So in this presentation, we had discussed about creation of an air-water interface wherein air is brought in contact with water or water is brought in contact with air. And we have also understood that this process is actually adopted from the natural phenomenon of self-purification of streams and rivers. We had also discussed the different type of aerators and its working principles. Let's move on to slide 21. These are the references that I have followed, and I would request each of you to go through this. The last reference has a link which connects you to a working video of mechanical aerators. Slide 22. Next session we shall be discussing about sedimentation and removal of settleable solids. My dear friends, I thank you for being patient and for this session. This is Rajesh Gopinath.